Welcome back, everyone. We're diving deep today. And this one's pretty interesting, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it all started with this article I was reading, all about this word truncation.
Truncation.
Yeah, like shortening things, cutting them off.
Okay, sure, yeah.
And it got me thinking, like, how that applies to way more than just words.
Like what?
Like ideas, projects, even just like daily life. Getting to the point.
Interesting.
And the source, this article, it really digs into all that.
I'm intrigued.
So I thought it'd be fun to kind of unpack some of these ideas with you, see what you think.
Sounds good to me.
One of the things that really struck me was this analogy the article uses about assembling furniture.
Okay.
You ever notice how those instructions, they always tell you, like, don't tighten all the screws right away.
Yeah, actually, now that you mention it.
You get the basic structure together first, kind of loosey-goosey.
Right.
And then you go back and tighten everything up. And the author, they connect that to how we approach big projects or problems even.
How so?
Well, like by starting with a simplified view, not getting bogged down in all the details right away.
Sort of like a rough draft, you mean?
Exactly. You're maximizing your potential because you're not limiting yourself too early on.
That's an interesting way to look at it.
And it kind of goes hand in hand with another big point the source makes about prioritizing, especially when you're short on time or resources.
Oh, for sure. That's always a struggle.
Like, how do you decide what to truncate in your own life?
Well, I think for me, it comes down to, like, what's truly essential,
The source actually talks about that, like focusing on client satisfaction in work projects, for example.
Right, because ultimately that's what matters most.
Or even like letting go of your pride a little bit just to meet a deadline.
Sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
Exactly. And sometimes achieving the most important goal means letting go of some of the smaller ones, right?
Absolutely. It's about recognizing your limitations, whether it's time, resources, energy, and being okay with that.
So true. And speaking of simplification, the source also dives into how it can be kind of a double-edged sword, especially in communication.
Oh, interesting.
They use this example of refactoring code, like making it simpler.
Okay.
Which can be great because it makes it easier to read, easier to work with.
Right.
But it can also limit your flexibility for future changes.
I see what you mean.
And it got me thinking, like, how does that apply to communication in general,
Yeah, that's a good question.
When does simplifying actually help, and when does it maybe hinder understanding?
Well, I think it comes down to, like you were saying earlier, finding that balance.
Finding that sweet spot.
Exactly. Being concise and clear is important, but oversimplifying can lead to, like, a loss of nuance.
And potential misunderstandings down the line.
Precisely.
And that actually ties in perfectly with the source's point about stress management.
Really? How so?
Well, they talk about how simplifying complex problems can actually make them less overwhelming, less stressful.
That makes sense.
Like by breaking things down into smaller, more manageable steps.
Right. You regain that sense of control.
Exactly. So you're not just facing this big, scary, complicated thing.
It's more like a roadmap.
Exactly. Which leads me to my final thought, and this is something the article doesn't explicitly address, but got me wondering.
What's that?
If we can apply this idea of truncation to our tasks, to our projects, could we also apply it to our emotions, our reactions?
Wow, now that's interesting.
Like, could we learn to truncate negative thoughts, anxieties?
To create a more peaceful inner landscape, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Something to think about, right?
Definitely. That's powerful stuff.
And really highlights how this concept of truncation, which started with just a word, can have such a profound impact.
On how we approach everything, really.
Our work, our goals, even our inner world.
It's all connected.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive.
This was great.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. Hopefully, we've given everyone some food for thought, some new ways to think about simplifying, prioritizing, and navigating this crazy thing we call life.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.
See you next time.